Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. For today's video, we're going to be looking at Johnny's prospects of successfully suing Amber Heard for defamation. And this is in relation to the case in Virginia over Amber's op-ed that was published in December of 2018. A quick note before we proceed with the video. Over the past few months, since my first video on this topic in May, I have extensively covered the details of this case, including the evidence. So I won't be going into any detail with regards to that in this video. I will only be making references to the evidence and the facts. But if you want more detail, please check out my channel because I have lost count of the number of videos that I have made in dedication to this topic. So Johnny is suing Amber for 3 counts of defamation. First, for the online version of the op-ed, which was published on the 18th of December 2018. Secondly is for the printed version of the op-ed. And finally, the third count, which is Amber's retweet of the link to the op-ed, which she tweeted on the 19th of December 2018. The gist of that op-ed is that she was abused by Johnny throughout their relationship. So Johnny is claiming defamation. So let's start off by defining it. Defamation is the publication of a false statement that harms a plaintiff's reputation and deters others in the community from wanting to associate with them. In most cases, defamation should also lead to an actual loss on the plaintiff's part. So for example, loss of reputation, loss of a career, loss of income, etc. As it is a civil case and a civil claim, the standard of proof is the preponderance of the evidence, which is a lesser standard than beyond a reasonable doubt that is utilized in criminal cases. The preponderance of evidence is the equivalent of on the balance of probabilities in the UK and where I'm at in Australia, which is essentially that the court or the jury must be at least 51% convinced that the plaintiff's allegations are true. So let's break down this cause of action into its elements and quickly see if each and every one of the elements has been satisfied, which is an integral part of successfully prosecuting someone for the offense that they have been charged with or the civil complaint that has been made against them. Firstly, we have publication, which is satisfied by the publication of the op-ed online and in hard copy, and to some extent, Amber's retweeting of it as well. Secondly, an actionable statement, which means a false statement that harms a plaintiff's reputation. And finally, the requisite fault of the defendant must be proven as well, which essentially means that the defendant must be responsible for this publication. For example, they've authored it, which is the case in this situation. Amber authored the op-ed. And even if the Washington Post did in fact edit or assist her in writing this op-ed, which there is conflicting evidence because now she is claiming she's not the sole author, whereas before she claimed that she really had no contact with anyone from the Washington Post, she just sent them the op-ed. Whatever the case may be, the fact that people helped you write it or edit it is completely irrelevant in this case. What matters is you are the author, you are the named author, and you signed off on any changes that were made before publication. The main focus of this video will be looking into whether the second statement is satisfied, which is it an actionable statement? Is it false? And has it had an adverse effect on the plaintiff's reputation? Elements 1 and 3 have been shown to be satisfied in a very straightforward way, so we won't be looking into them in any more detail. The specific type of defamation that Johnny is claiming is defamation per se. Virginia law recognizes that some statements are so egregious that they are automatically presumed to be defamatory to the plaintiff, and so no actual harm has to be proven by the plaintiff. Now, there are many examples of defamation per se, but the one that pertains to this particular case is accusing the plaintiff of criminal conduct that would likely lead to an indictment or some form of punishment if they were charged with that conduct. In this case, of course, it is assault. So Amber is alleging that Johnny assaulted her, which is a crime that has a punishment if successfully charged and convicted. Another example of defamation per se is if the statement hurts the plaintiff in his profession or trade. Now, we know that a major component of Johnny's case is that Amber's op-ed has harmed his reputation. Evidence of this harm and devastation include the fact that Disney decided to drop Johnny from his role as Captain Jack Sparrow in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise on the 22nd of December 2018, a mere 4 days after the op-ed was initially published. A further example is how his reputation was so tarnished in the public eye that people started boycotting Johnny's movies, were incredibly unhappy about the fact that he was cast as Grindelwald in Fantastic Beasts, and even attacked J.K. Rowling for her decision to cast him. And of course, a major example of this is the entire libel claim that took place in the UK against the Sun newspaper. And that was over an article that they published, calling J.K. Rowling crazy for casting someone like Johnny, insinuating that he was not a fit person to be a Hollywood actor and to be in the film industry anymore. And most damning of all, of course, alleging that he is a wife beater. That entire situation in the UK demonstrates just how far-reaching and how damaging Amber's allegations against Johnny have been, not just since the publication of the op-ed, but since this entire case started back in 2016 after their separation. And for those of you who haven't read the op-ed, she essentially says that 2 years ago, placing her back to 2016, she was a victim of domestic violence. In Virginia, there is a distinction made between defamation claims that are brought by private individuals and public ones. A private individual is self-explanatory. It's basically someone like you or me, people who are not famous and who have no position on the public sphere. Public figures are further separated into two categories: all-purpose and limited purpose. For the purpose of this video, we're going to be focusing on all-purpose public figures because that is the category that Johnny falls under. So all-purpose public figures are private individuals who occupy positions of such persuasive power and influence that they are deemed public figures for all purposes. They invite attention and comment. This category has been found to include movie stars, elite athletes, etc. So this distinction between private and public figures exists because there is actually a separate standard that applies solely to public figures who bring defamation claims, and that is actual malice. For private individuals, the negligence standard applies, which I won't be going into for the purposes of this video, but in very brief terms, a defamation claim can be successful even if the defendant was just negligent in their publication of their false statement. So they need not have intended to do so. Since Johnny is a public figure, the element of actual malice must be satisfied in order for his claim to be successful. Now, we've spoken about actual malice briefly in my previous videos. In the legal context, actual malice has nothing to do with ill will or disliking someone or wishing them harm. That is the general or common definition of malice, so it is important to make that distinction. In the context of defamation, actual malice is satisfied under two conditions. Firstly, if the defendant knew that the statement was false, or secondly, they had a reckless disregard for the truth. And actual malice focuses on the defendant's state of mind at the actual time of publication. As we discussed in a previous video, the court found that 3 out of 4 of the statements relied on by Johnny are actionable statements, which means that they have the potential to be found to be defamatory by a jury in trial. Let's have a look at these statements in detail. Firstly, the title, which she has completely denounced any responsibility for. Amber Heard: I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change. So the court found that this first statement could reasonably convey the alleged defamatory meaning, which is that Johnny abused Amber. The court further stated that this statement could reasonably imply that the sexual violence Ms. Heard spoke up against was in fact perpetrated by Mr. Depp. And most importantly, since Amber keeps bringing up the defense of freedom of expression and that the anti-SLAPP laws protect her, the Supreme Court of Virginia has held that factual statements made in support of an opinion can form the basis for a defamation action, which means that even though part of a statement may contain an opinion, that does not protect a defendant from a defamation claim. Statements of fact supporting that opinion can still be found to be defamatory. So with regards to this statement, the court held that a jury in this case could find that Amber knew or should have known that the implied factual elements of the statement were false and defamatory based on the pleadings. And note that they also said that this reasoning extends to the other two allowed statements. The second statement reads, "Then, 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out." Again, the court found that Amber called herself a public figure representing domestic abuse, which can be read to imply that she became a representative of domestic abuse because she was abused by Johnny. Once again, this can be inferred without extending the language beyond its ordinary and common acceptation. So it's not a stretch. You read that and it's a very common assumption or inference to make. Because who was Amber with 2 years ago? She specified. From 2018, you go back 2 years. That's 2016. Who was she with? She was with Johnny. Yes, she was with Elon, but we all know that she never really even openly admitted to that relationship until after she was separated from Johnny. So there is no other male or no other person to which this conduct of abuse can be attributed other than Johnny Depp. And the court makes mention of this by stating that this conclusion is further supported by defendant saying she attained this status 2 years ago, which would have been the same time the parties' divorce was unfolding. And finally, the third statement. I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. Once again, the court found that this statement could reasonably convey that she, Amber, saw how Johnny was protected by institutions after he abused her and she spoke up against it. The court further stated that Amber said she saw this happen to men in real time, which when read in the context of the entire article, where she previously stated this happened 2 years ago, that would once again reasonably cause readers to conclude that she was referring to her experience with Johnny, despite her efforts to globalize the statement. This case is a classic example of implied defamation, which is that you need not expressly name the defendant if the public can reasonably infer exactly who you are talking about. And this is more with public figures. If you were defaming a private individual, this would be a much more difficult argument to make. All right, so now that we know that 3 out of the 4 statements are indeed actionable, how can we prove actual malice? Which means, how can we prove that Amber knowingly made these false statements or had a reckless disregard for their falsity or truth? And this is where I'm going to start making references because there is extensive coverage of all the evidence against Amber on YouTube, not just on my channel. All of you know who Incredibly Average is. Amazing YouTube channel. He goes into such detail into the evidence. With regards to my channel, there are 2 videos in which I rebut all of her evidence in great detail. And there's also a video that supports Johnny's allegations against her with proof. So if you want more in-depth detail about the evidence against her that proves that she knowingly made these false statements, then please check out my videos, Incredibly Average, and others on YouTube as well. All of this evidence is crucial to Johnny's success in this case because Amber is relying on 2 particular defenses, and we're going to talk about them right now. The first one is the defense of truth, more specifically, substantial truth. And this is the primary defense that Amber is relying on. Now, with substantial truth, the entire statement doesn't have to be entirely true. What matters is the gist of it. For example, and I'm sure you're all going to recognize this example, if someone said that you punched them and they published this allegation, and then you come out and say, I didn't punch you, I hit you. Do you actually think that a court and a jury will find for the defendant, the person who is denying the allegation, and will rule that the statement was defamatory? Of course not. Now, of course, this is just a simple example, but it demonstrates how it's the gist of the statement that matters, not the detail. What matters is you physically assaulted someone, not whether your fist was clenched or it was an open hand. Her second defense is basically Virginia's anti-SLAPP laws, relying on the defense of opinion or freedom of expression. as per the First Amendment. Now, we've already looked at the Virginia anti-SLAPP laws in great detail in at least 2 videos, but because this video is more of a comprehensive analysis and explanation of defamation in Virginia, we're going to be looking at it briefly once again. So the relevant section essentially protects a defendant from a defamation claim based solely on statements regarding matters of public concern that would be protected under the First Amendment. And the second one doesn't apply, so I won't be reading it out. However, as we have previously pointed out, there is an exception to this defense, which is housed within this section. At the bottom, you will see it says, the immunity provided by this section shall not apply to any statements made with actual or constructive knowledge that they are false or with reckless disregard for whether they are false, which is the definition of actual malice, which means that even if someone claims protection under this statute, under this section, if they made those statements with actual malice, they are no longer immune to civil liability. So even if you're claiming freedom of expression, that is completely canceled out by the presence of actual malice, which, as all the evidence demonstrates, clearly exists in this case. So in my opinion, both of these defenses fail. In closing, I submit that on the preponderance of the evidence, so greater than a 50% chance, Amber publicly defamed Johnny with actual malice when this op-ed was published. But the issue here is, will the jury arrive at the same decision? The issue with the jury is that they are a wild card. They are selected randomly and they come from all walks of life. And like the rest of us humans, they come with their own set of beliefs, values, and preconceived notions. So it's incredibly difficult to predict how this will turn out. Maybe the jury will be comprised of people who truly don't believe that a woman can abuse a man. Because unfortunately, that is the status quo right now in this world. The reality is, beautiful, conventionally attractive rather, young females, and sometimes even older females, are usually let off easy. And society is still grappling with the fact that women can be just as savage, just as monstrous, just as evil as men can, because we are both human. Women are not angels that are incapable of a single evil deed. And for some reason, I don't know where in history this happened, people adopted the belief that women are angels. I've seen firsthand what women are capable of. And it scares me to think that society still wants to turn a blind eye. We're gonna get the decision on the UK libel case soon, and that will be a landmark decision, as will the decision of this case in Virginia, because if Johnny wins, the message to society will be loud and clear. Men can be and are currently being abused and assaulted and harassed and stalked by women every single day. So when I say I truly hope Johnny will win, of course, it's for his sake as well, because it would be a tragedy for an innocent man to lose on such a public scale. The devastation that he has experienced both personally and professionally will only be amplified if he loses even one of these cases, let alone 2. But on a grander scale, winning this case will benefit men all over the globe. That's it for this video. I hope you found it informative. As always, don't forget to let me know what you think in the comments below. Pretend you're a jury. Let me know what your verdict would be. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll catch you in a future video.